Oh, you doing my hair, baby? Chrisean. Family time on New Year's. Say hola.
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 Chrisean. What's up, yo? Oh, you doing my hair? Oh, thank you for the kisses, Papa. That was so nice.
Nobody expects a casual gym visit to turn into a headline that smells like discrimination, power plays, and reality TV ego collisions. But welcome to celebrity life on hard mode. Because when Chrissy and Rock walked in thinking it was just another day, she allegedly walked out stunned, embarrassed, and furious. Not over drama between adults, not over internet beef, but over her son being told he couldn't stay inside that. Let that sink in. According to what set social media on fire, her child was allegedly sent back outside while adults remained comfortably inside. No clear rule explanation, no calm clarification, just a decision that felt cold, awkward, and way too personal. And when the name tied to that moment surfaced, the internet lost its mind because that name was Nikki Baby. That's when this stopped sounding like a misunderstanding and started sounding like a power flex gone wrong. Timelines froze. Comment sections erupted. People weren't debating gym policies anymore. They were asking why a child was placed in the crossfire of grown people tension. And once the internet senses unfairness involving a kid, logic leaves the building. This wasn't loud at first. It was uncomfortable. And uncomfortable stories don't fade quietly. They explode. What made the situation explode wasn't volume. It was the silence right before everything snapped. According to how the story first spread, nothing about that day felt dramatic at the start. No cameras set up, no social media countdown, no warning that is simple. Everyday moment was about to morph into a headline with teeth. And that's exactly why it hits so hard, because chaos is always louder when it interrupts normally for Chrissy and Rock. The expectation was basic: walk and handle business, mind her child, and leave. Nothing about that scenario should have triggered controversy. But celebrity life has a way of turning neutral spaces into battlegrounds, especially when power dynamics are involved. The moment her son was allegedly told he couldn't remain inside, the atmosphere shifted from casual to hostile in seconds. Not loud hostile. Worse, awkward hostile. That's the kind of tension you feel in your chest before your brain catches up. The kind that makes everyone nearby uncomfortable, even if they don't know why. And from the way people described it, there wasn't a clear explanation offered that softened the blow. No visible policy, no calm breakdown, just an outcome that felt final, selective, and impossible to ignore. That the presence of a child is what changed everything. Adult drama stays entertaining because people can mentally compartmentalize it. Kids don't belong in that box. The moment a child is involved, the tone shifts from gossip to judgment. And judgment online is ruthless. It doesn't wait for nuance. It reacts to optics first and asks questions later. If at all, as the story began circulating, early reactions focused less on rules and more on respect. People weren't asking what the gym's policy was. They were asking why it felt like discretion was used instead of procedure. That distinction matters because procedure feels neutral, discretion feels personal, and personal decisions invite personal backlash. Then the name entered the narrative, and everything escalated. Nikki Baby wasn't introduced as a background detail. She was framed as a decision maker, someone with authority or influence over what happened that instantly reframed the entire situation. This wasn't an anonymous employee enforcing rules. This was a public figure making a call that affected another public figure's child. Once that framing took hold, the internet did what it always does. It filled in blanks aggressively. Past drama resurfaced. Old clips got dragged back into circulation. People started questioning intent rather than outcome. Was this enforcement or ego? Was this policy or punishment? Those questions grew louder with every retelling. Chrisean's reaction, as described by those who followed the story closely, wasn't theatrical. It wasn't explosive. It was disbelief. That stunned pause when your brain is trying to understand how something so small turned so humiliating. That reaction mattered more than shouting ever could, because disbelief signals sincerity. It tells audiences this wasn't expected, rehearsed, or weaponized in advance. The timeline moved fast after that. Screenshots replaced explanations. Short clips replaced context. Comment sections turned into courtrooms. And in those courtrooms, emotional logic ruled. People imagine how they'd feel if their child was treated that way. That empathy fueled outrage far more effectively than any accusation could have. What made the situation harder to control was the lack of immediate clarification. No rapid statement explaining policy. No visible attempt to cool things down publicly. Silence, intentional or not, allowed speculation to harden into belief. And belief doesn't require proof when it feels emotionally justified. The story also tapped into a broader conversation about access and power. Who gets grace? Who gets flexibility? Who gets embarrassed quietly while others are protected? Those themes resonate deeply online because many people have lived versions of them in their own lives. When they see a celebrity version play out, it validates. Personal resentment and validated resentment spreads fast. As hours passed, the narrative became less about the specific location and more about what the moment symbolized. Control, authority, public embarrassment. The unspoken message that some people can decide where others belong, even temporarily. That symbolism gave the story longevity. It wasn't just a bad interaction. It was a relatable one. Critics tried to slow the momentum by urging patience, reminding everyone that stories online are often incomplete. But patience doesn't trend. Emotion does. And the emotional hook here was powerful. A mother feeling blindsided, a child caught in adult tension, and a decision that looked unnecessary at best and targeted at worst. The situation also reopened debates about how celebrities with complicated reputations are treated differently. Some argued that Chrisean's past made people less inclined to offer her grace. Others countered that this incident proved why reputations shouldn't dictate treatment, especially when children are involved. That backhand forth added layers to the discourse and kept it circulating. By the end of this phase, the story had fully escaped its original moment. It was no longer just about what happened inside that space. It was about how quickly authority can feel like overreach, how silence can feel like guilt, and how one uncomfortable interaction can ignite weeks of debate when fame is involved. And most importantly, it left everyone with the same uneasy feeling that even if no rules were technically broken, something still felt wrong. And when something feels wrong online, the internet doesn't let it go. It digs, it debates, and it waits for the next shoe to drop. Once the story escaped the original moment and hit social media, it didn't just trend, it transformed. What started as a single uncomfortable incident quickly became a full-scale internet event. The kind that hijacks timelines, dominates group chats, and forces everyone to pick a side whether they want to or not. At that point, the facts stopped being the main character. Emotion took over the lead role, and emotion does not play fair. The first thing that exploded was outrage, but not the loud, organized kind. This was raw, scattered outrage, the type fueled by instinct rather than information. Parents reacted before commentators, mothers especially, didn't wait for explanations or statements. They imagined their own child standing there confused, embarrassed, and singled out. That mental image alone was enough to lock in loyalty to Chrisean's side for a huge portion of the audience. Once that emotional bond forms, no clarification later can fully undo it. Then came the memes. Because the internet processes discomfort through humor like it's a coping mechanism, screenshots were turned into sarcastic captions. Reaction faces were recycled into punchlines. People joked about gem exclusive access like it was a VIP nightclub. Except this time the joke had teeth. Underneath the laughs was anger. And the laughter made that anger easier to spread without sounding too serious. Content creators moved fast to fast. Everyone wanted to be first, not accurate. Reaction videos multiplied, each one hotter than the last. Some creators framed the situation as blatant disrespect. Others leaned into the idea of power abuse. A few tried to calm things down, but calm voices don't survive in viral storms. They get drowned out by outrage with good lighting and dramatic 2 NAL'd. The narrative started mutating depending on who was telling it. In some versions, the incident was framed as intentional humiliation. In others, it was described as a deliberate attempt to assert dominance. Even the physical details began to shift slightly with every retelling. That's how stories evolve online. Each retelling adds emotion, not clarity. What escalated everything further was the lack of a clear, immediate counter-narrative. No visible policy explanation went viral. No calm breakdown circulated with the same speed as the outrage. And an internet culture, if your explanation doesn't travel as fast as the accusation, it might as well not exist. Silence filled the gaps. And silence is interpreted as confirmation by people already leaning emotionally. Got the name Nikki Baby became the lightning rod. Supporters defended her authority, arguing that rules are rules and public figures shouldn't expect special treatment. Critics questioned why discretion seemed to be applied so selectively. Neutral observers asked why the situation wasn't handled privately or gently, especially considering a child was involved. That three-way split ensured the conversation wouldn't die quickly. Old footage resurfaced, as it always does. Past moments involving tension, side-eye, or awkward energy were suddenly reinterpreted as foreshadowing. People began saying things like, "I always felt something was off," which is the internet's favorite way of rewriting history. Once a narrative takes hold, the past becomes evidence whether it actually fits or not. Public outrage intensified when people started comparing this situation to their own experiences. Stories flooded comment sections about kids being excluded, embarrassed, or treated unfairly in public spaces. The celebrity element faded for a moment, replaced by shared resentment. That's when a scandal stops being entertainment and becomes personal, and personal outrage is sticky. Meanwhile, defenders of Nikki Baby argued that authority figures are allowed to make judgment calls, especially in shared spaces. But that argument struggled because judgment calls imply discretion, and discretion implies bias even when none is intended. Online audiences don't reward nuance. They punish optics. And the optics here looked ugly to many viewers. Subtle reactions from other celebrities added another layer. People noticed who liked which posts, who stayed silent, and who avoided mentioning the situation entirely. Silence from normally outspoken figures was read as discomfort. Discomfort was read as acknowledgement. A chain reaction of assumptions followed. None of them provable, all of them powerful. The gym itself became a secondary villain in the narrative. People questioned policies, management, and accountability. Reviews were scrutinized. Old complaints resurfaced. Whether relevant or not, the location became symbolic of authority gone wrong. Once a place becomes symbolic, logic loses ground. What kept the story alive wasn't new information. It was anticipation. People were waiting for a response, a clarification, or a confrontation. Every hour without resolution increased tension. Speculation filled the void. The audience didn't want calm. They wanted confirmation of whatever version of the story they'd emotionally committed to. Chrisean's restraint during this phase played a significant role. She didn't flood the internet with rants. She didn't over-explain. She let the story breathe, which made it feel heavier. Silence from someone expected to explode reads as confidence to supporters and menace to critics. Either way, it keeps eyes locked. The conversation also exposed deeper divide in how people view celebrity motherhood. Some argued that fame complicates everything and invites scrutiny. Others insisted that motherhood should override reputation entirely. That clash fueled debates far beyond the original incident, turning the story into a cultural argument rather than a single event. By the time the internet finished chewing on this phase, positions were entrenched, minds were made up, and that's the point where narratives become dangerous because they no longer need updates to survive. They exist independently, ready to resurface whenever the names involved appear again. But at this stage, the situation wasn't just about what happened inside a gym. It was about power, perception, and the internet's obsession with deciding who deserves empathy and who doesn't. And once those lines are drawn, the fallout is inevitable. Once the outrage cooled from a roaring fire into a steady burn, the real consequences begin to surface. This is the phase nobody ever trends for, but it's the one that lasts the longest, the aftermath. The part where headlines slow down, but reputations, relationships, and public perception quietly recalibrate in the background. Because scandals don't actually end when people stop tweeting about them, they end when the damage finishes settling. And this one settled deep for Chrissy and Rock. The narrative shifted in an unexpected direction. Sympathy is something she's rarely afforded in bulk began to solidify. Even longtime critics hesitated, not because they suddenly became fans, but because the focus stayed on her child. That detail changed the math. It reframed her not as chaos incarnate, but as a mother blindsided by a moment that felt unnecessary and humiliating. Online audiences are fickle, but they are protective when kids are involved. And that protection translated into a rare pause in the usual pylon. That pause mattered. It softened language. It shifted tone. The commentators who usually dragged her took a step back. Not fully supportive, but no longer hostile. And in celebrity culture, neutrality can be a win when the alternative is constant attack. This incident didn't erase her past, but it complicated the way people talked about her future, and complication is often the first step toward perception change for Nikki Baby. The aftermath was heavier and more complicated. Regardless of intent, perception locked in quickly. Once a narrative frames you as a person who made a child feel unwelcome, it sticks like glue. Even people who defended her authority admitted the optics were rough. And optics don't fade just because explanations eventually surface. They linger waiting to be referenced the next time something even remotely similar happens. This is where silence became a double-edged sword. Speaking to soon risks saying the wrong thing. Speaking to late looks evasive. The longer the gap between incident and clarification, the more room speculation has to harden into belief. And belief doesn't care about nuance. It remembers how something felt, not how it was explained. The gem itself didn't escape and skate either. Whether fair or not, it became symbolic. Online audiences don't differentiate between individuals and institutions very well. Once a place is associated with discomfort, exclusion, or embarrassment, that association becomes its unofficial reputation. Reviews get ray, old complaints resurface, neutral spaces become cautionary tales. The internet loves symbols, and this location unwillingly became one. What made the follow particularly sticky was the lack of a clean ending. There was no viral apology that satisfied everyone. No definitive policy breakdown that went just as viral as the outraged no moment where all sides agreed the situation was resolved, and unresolved stories don't disappear. They live in comment sections, reaction videos, and remember when references that pop up months later. Relationships behind the scenes were almost certainly affected. Moments like this force people to reveal where they stand intentionally or not, who reached out privately, who stayed silent, who distanced themselves publicly without saying a word. Loyalty tests happen quietly, and their results don't get announced. They just change who gets invited, who gets trusted, and who gets kept at arm's length. Public perception also began to evolve in subtler ways. Future appearances, interviews, and interactions involving the people connected to this incident will now be viewed through a different lens. Innocent moments may be questioned. Authority may be scrutinized more closely. Even unrelated decisions could be reinterpreted as patterns rather than coincidences. That's how reputational shadows work. They don't block the light entirely. They just dim it enough to be noticeable. The internet predictably moved on to new drama. It always does. But moving on doesn't mean forgetting. Screenshots remain. Clips remain. Opinions remain archived in comment histories and reaction thumbnails. The story didn't vanish. It simply joined the internet's long-term memory, ready to be pulled out whenever convenient. Perhaps the most unsettling consequence was the broader message it sent to viewers. Many saw their own experiences reflected back at them. Moments of exclusion, moments of embarrassment, moments where authority felt arbitrary rather than fair. That relatability ensured the story would outlive its original context. It wasn't just about celebrities anymore. It was about power dynamics everyone recognizes for Chrisean. The incident reinforced a narrative she may not have intended but couldn't escape. that her life exists at the intersection of chaos and vulnerability, that even routine moments can become spectacles, that motherhood doesn't shield you from public judgment, but it can sometimes humanize you in unexpected ways. That humanization might be temporary, but it's not meaningless. For Nikki Baby, the challenge going forward is perception repair, not explanation. Explanations address facts. Repair addresses feelings, and feelings are harder to manage because they don't respond to logic. They respond to time, consistency, and future behavior. One moment doesn't define a person, but it can redefine how closely people watch the next one. The real lesson here isn't about gyms, policies, or even celebrity drama. It's about how quickly power, perception, and silence can collide to create something bigger than the original moment. It's about how kids amplify stakes in ways adults often underestimate. And it's about how the internet doesn't wait for full stories before deciding who deserves empathy. As this chapter faded from the front page, it didn't close. It paused like a show between seasons, unresolved and quietly threatening to return with new context, new angles, and new reactions. Because in a culture that never stops recording, moments don't disappear, they echo. And the next time any of these names trend, this incident will be waiting in the background. Not shouting, not demanding attention, just existing, ready to be remembered, ready to be reinterpreted, ready to remind everyone that in the age of viral outrage, even the smallest spark can leave a permanent mark. And this right here is exactly why celebrity life is never as simple as it looks on Instagram. One uncomfortable moment turns into a viral storm. One decision turns into a reputation test. And one kid caught in the middle turns a quiet situation into something the internet refuses to let go. If you watch this whole breakdown, you already know this wasn't just about a gym visit. It was about power, perception, and how fast the internet decides who deserves grace and who gets dragged. And whether you think this situation was mishandled, misunderstood, or completely blown out of proportion, one thing is clear. Stories like this don't just vanish. They resurface when you least expect them. So, go ahead and smash that like button like it disrespected you personally and thought you would notice. Drop a comment and tell me exactly where you stand, because I know you've got an opinion, and I want to see the debate light up down there. Subscribe like you don't want to miss the next chapter, because around here, the drama doesn't come with warning labels. This channel doesn't whisper. We break down the mess, read between the lines, and call out the uncomfortable details nobody else wants to touch. New scandals, old receipts, and internet chaos drop constantly right here. Turn on notifications, stay tapped in, and remember one thing. This is Vibe Crave, where the stories hit hard, the takes hit harder, and the internet never gets the last.